Shalom uvracha, Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh. We have the privilege to study this afternoon the weekly parasha of Parshat Chukat, in which we read of the departure from this world of one of the greatest leaders in world Jewish history. The Torah records the death, the demise of Aharon HaKohen, and there is something mysterious about the particular details of the reaction to his passing. It is interesting to note that no other personality, to the best of my knowledge, in Torah literature, in the Torah itself, we never find a date recorded about the death of anyone other than Aharon HaKohen. At the end of the book, not in our parsha, but later on in Parshat Mas'eh, we read of the date that he passed away on Chodesh HaChamishi Be'achad LaChodesh. He passed away on the beginning, at the first day of the month of Av. But there is something unique about the death of Aharon, in that it stirred a reaction on the part of the entire Jewish people. Everyone is crying. Kol Beit Yisrael, the entire house of Israel, is in tears over the death of Aharon. Where else do we find such a tribute in the entire 5 books of Moses? It's difficult to find a parallel. And I was thinking that the fact that everyone is crying over Aharon may be connected to the fact that the first reference to Aharon in the Torah may also be connected to the concept of crying. Excuse me. It's not contagious on YouTube. It's not contagious on any kind of video. I don't even think I have a cold, but I'm sorry to disturb.
Only your love is contagious.
Well, I hope so, in a positive way. Loving the right things. So anyway, the first reference to Aharon in the Torah may be in a very interesting statement that the Torah makes about his great brother Moses, Moshe. As is well known, for the first 3 months of Moshe's life, his mother hid him. There was this evil decree on the part of Pharaoh to murder all Jewish male babies. And after 3 months of hiding, she couldn't hide him any longer. And we read in the 2nd chapter of Exodus that she put him in a basket of sort, and she put him right near the Nile River. Now, when he was in this basket, the daughter of Pharaoh comes along to wash herself in the river, to bathe in the river, and she sees this basket. She opens it up, quote, chapter 2 of Exodus, verse 6. Vatiftah, she opens the basket, the daughter of Pharaoh opens the basket, Vatir'eu et hayeled, and she saw him. She saw the child. V'hinei na'ar bocheh, and there was a young child crying. V'hinei na'ar bocheh, there was some kind of youth crying. Now, why this double expression? Vatir'eu et hayeled, she saw the child. V'hinei na'ar bocheh, and the nar, the young man, was crying. There are different approaches. I mean, some suggest that perhaps the double usage of yeled and nar implies that he was crying not as a baby would cry, but as an older child would cry. The Ramban, the Rashbam, and others seem to feel, no, nar can be a very young child. Immediately at birth, a young man, a baby, can be called a nar. But why the double expression about Tireu et hayeled? She saw the child, v'hinei nar, and this nar was crying. It should say v'hinei hu bocha, and he was crying. Why the word nar? And the Midrash teaches, it's quoted in Yalkut Shimoni on the verse in the book of Exodus, that the nar that was crying was not that baby in the basket. It was his older brother. It was Aharon crying over the plight of his baby brother. And this interpretation is quoted in the Tosafos and Hadar Zakenim and elsewhere. The first reference to Aharon in the Torah has something to do with crying. Can we suggest that perhaps the older brother who knows how to cry over his brother, it is that person who merits to have everyone crying when he leaves this world? in our Parshat Chukat, Vayivku et Aharon 30 yom kol Beit Yisrael, the entire nation, the entire house of Israel is crying. Rashi quotes it in our Parsha. He points out, what does kol Beit Yisrael mean? The entire house of Israel? Anashim, Hanashim, both men and women. Lefi shahaya Aharon rodef shalom. Since Aaron was the pursuer of peace, umatil lahava bein ba'alei meriva ubein ish lishto, and he was the one who was always bringing peace between people who unfortunately weren't getting along, between husbands and wives, or wives and husbands who were at ends with each other. It was Aharon who was always bringing peace. Therefore, kol Beit Yisrael. Therefore, everyone missed him at his death. Or Rashi later on in the Torah, towards the very end of the book of Deuteronomy, almost the last few sentences of the Chumash, where we read about the death of Moshe. Interestingly enough, in chapter 34, verse 8 of Deuteronomy, it says, Vayivku v'nei Yisrael at Moshe. The sons of Israel cried over Moses. Sons of Israel. What about the daughters of Israel? What about everybody else in Israel? So if you study the comment of Rashi in Vizot HaBeracha, Rashi writes, B'nei Yisrael, the sons of Israel cried over Moses. HaZacharim, the males. Aval B'Aharon. But regarding his brother Aaron, Mitoch Shaya Rodef Shalom, since he was always pursuing peace, V'notein Shalom bein ish l're'ehu, uvein isha l'ba'ala, and setting patterns of bringing peace between warring people, he was the ultimate marriage counselor. So therefore, when he passed away, the entire house of Israel, men, women, everyone felt it. Therefore, regarding Aharon, it says, Beit Kol Beit Yisrael, Zacharim Unikevot. Not only that, but in the Midrash, in a section called Kala Rabbati, the third chapter of Kala Rabbati, we read about how many people named Aharon participated in crying over Aharon at his funeral. He didn't have an actual funeral, but something along the lines of a funeral. Tana, I'm quoting, Kala Rabbati Perek Shlishi, Shmonim Elef Bachurim, 80,000 young men. When one needs to seek a proper teaching in Midrash, to study when is something literal and when is something exaggerated. I'm not going to go into that discussion now. When it says 80,000, does it really mean literally 80,000, or does it mean a great, great deal? But I'll just read it on its most basic level. Shmonim elef bachurim, kruim b'shem Aharon, 80,000 men, 80,000 young men named Aharon, yatzeu aharei mitato. They followed, they escorted, they mourned, they bewailed the death of Aharon. Why were there so many people named Aharon? 80,000 people? 80,000 young men named Aharon? Miman, the Havaba'il Garsha. These were the children of people who were on the verge of divorce. And then Aharon convinced them. He rekindled the love between them, Vadar, and then he changed his mind. V'yabra. And then when the women became pregnant, they paid tribute, a testimony to Aharon by naming the children by his name. So there were 80,000 such men. It means 80,000 relationships, at least 80,000 relationships saved by Aharon, besides all the girls that were born and other people not named Aharon. And so we read in the Midrash that Aharon's characteristic was different than that of Moshe. I'm reading from the Sifra, an early halachic Midrash on Parshat Shmini, paragraph 37, wherein we read, again the Midrash points out that everyone is crying over Aharon, but not everyone is crying over Moshe's death. Aharon lo amar leish v'lo leisha. Aharon never went over to a person and criticized them, never pointed out their faults, never spoke about how they were sinning. Sarachta, he never told them, oh, you sinned, you did something wrong. He was always upbeat, he was always positive, maybe encouraging. Aval Moshe mipnei shochicham, but Moshe, since he criticized them, ne'emar bo vayivku b'nei Yisrael et Moshe. Only a select group cried over Moshe. V'chein hakatuv b'farash al yidei Aharon b'Kabbalah. We also learn in the prophets, the prophet Malachi, he speaks in the second chapter about how much love and peace there was in the life of the covenant with Aaron. Briti hayita ito hachayim v'shalom. He had this covenant of life and peace. Shaya rodev shalom b'Yisrael. As Rabbi Monk writes in his commentary, Aharon is bewailed by the entire house of Israel. He writes this in the Call of the Torah, in his commentary on Deuteronomy 34. Moses had vehemently reprimanded the children of Israel. He was the lawgiver who pronounced the commandments and admonitions that held the Israelites to account. Aaron, on the other hand, was primarily the agent for atonement, whose role was to bring about forgiveness for the sins of the Jews. This naturally led to an extra degree of affection toward him and a greater sense of loss at his passing. You know, in Pirkei Avot we read Hillel's teaching, be of the students of Aharon. Hevei mitalmidav shel Aharon, ohev shalom, rodev shalom, ohev et haberiot, bekarvan laTorah. Everyone should become a student of Aharon. And I've often wondered, why is he telling us to become a student of Aharon? What's wrong with being a student of Moshe? Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe our teacher. One could suggest it's obvious that you have to be a student of Moshe. The teaching of Hillel is that you should also be a student of Aharon. Perhaps one could say that Hillel is saying if you have to choose two methods of life, maybe one should prefer the method of Aharon. We have to select for us. Moses was on a special level of prophecy, special level of closing. He had his particular way, but maybe for all of us, suggests Hillel, we should become students of Aharon, loving peace, pursuing peace, loving people, and bringing them closer to Torah. May we all learn and internalize the messages of Aharon as we make deliberate efforts to become students of Aharon HaKohen. Thank you so much for listening. Shalom Uvracha.